Hello everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Kickstarter Weekly. This week's episode is going to showcase 4 different crowdfunding games that are completing their funding from January 31st through February 6th. Now, usually in these videos, at the very top, I talk about the games that I've personally played since the last video. Unfortunately, this week there are no games. I've just been busy making videos and doing other things for the channel. Now, without any further ado, let's get going and get right to the 4 crowdfunding campaigns that are running and funding during this coming week. The first game on my list is Yucatan, and this game had a minimum required funding goal of $56,000. They're currently sitting at $273,000, which is just under about 5 times that minimum required funding goal. Now, this game is going to fund on Tuesday, February 1st. Now, this is a game for 2 to 4 players. It plays in about 45 to 60 minutes. Complexity looks to be in the medium-heavy range, and we're going to set the risk on this campaign at medium-low. Now, this is sort of the 3rd game in a spiritual series, the first of which is Cyclades, the second which is Kemet, and the 3rd is now Yucatan. And like those other games, it's going to be a dudes on a map game with miniatures and players engaging in combat against each other using cards. It's also got action points, it's got area majority, and thematically, there's a shift from Kemet, which was Egyptian themed, to the Mayan theme here. So it's a theme that we see a little bit less in games, a Mayan theme, which means that we should be getting different kinds of miniatures than we've seen in other games in the past, hopefully. Now, this game is designed by Guillaume Montiage. He previously designed Kemet, Kemet Blood and Sand, and Unlock Timeless Adventures. And the art in Yucatan is by Carl Fitzgerald, and this appears to be his first published game. It's being published by Madagot, who are best known for Captain Sonar, Cyclades, Innis, Kemet, and Kemet Blood and Sand. Now, there are several different pledge levels for this one, but there's essentially 2 different pledge levels per location. So if you look at the Kickstarter page, you may see many more pledges than 2, but they're for specific languages and or countries. So of the pledges that you'd be interested in, there are actually 2. The first is for $79. It's called the Yucatan Base Pledge. Just make sure that you're pledging the correct pledge for where you live. And that's going to include the base game and then any associated stretch goals. For $134, you can pledge for the Yucatan All-In, and that will take the base game, the stretch goals, and then add in the 5 to 6 player expansion, the solo mode expansion, a big kind of oversized neoprene playmat that replaces the board essentially, and then enough sleeve packs to sleeve all of the cards in the game. Now, while the 5 to 6 player expansion doesn't seem to be available as an add-on, I haven't checked going through, so it's possible it still could be there, but it's not listed on the page as one of the potential add-ons. But everything else in that all-in pledge is. So if you want to just get the base game and then add on a few other things specific to your tastes, here are the prices of those add-ons. For $11, you can add on the sleeves for all of the cards in the game. For $28, you can add on the solo mode. Also for $28, but obviously a separate charge, you can add on the oversized neoprene playmat that replaces the board. For $96, you can add on the base pledge for Kemet Blood and Sand. And for $151, you can add on essentially the all-in pledge from Kemet Blood and Sand. Now, I'm not going to detail what's added from one version of Kemet to the next because that's not even the game that we're talking about here. It's Yucatan. Just know that if you missed Kemet Blood and Sand and you still want it, you can get it through this campaign as an add-on, and you can either get the base pledge or the all-in pledge. Now, if you're in the continental United States, no matter which pledge you pledge, the shipping will run you about $19, and Madagot is planning on delivering Yucatan in December of 2022. From there, we go to Final Girl Season 2. The first campaign did really well, I think better than they were expecting, and then when the Kickstarter actually delivered this past year, it got a lot of positive chatter. I think part of that may be because it's a solo game, and so people were able to play it in the pandemic regardless of what their situation was. But people should know going into this that there is a high amount of luck in that solo game. So if you don't like dice rolling and you don't like luck, Final Girl may not be for you. There are ways to mitigate the dice rolls in the game, but they still do play a part in that game. Now, this new Kickstarter and this new season of films that you can play with the Final Girl core box has continued to blow up. Their original minimum required funding goal for this campaign was $100,000. They're currently sitting at 1.5 million, which is about 10 times that minimum required funding goal. Final Girl Season 2 will complete their funding on Thursday, February 3rd. As I already mentioned, this is a solo game, so it's solo play only, unless, you want to grab a friend and maybe try to play it cooperatively, but you will be playing as one player and making those decisions together. There's not a cooperative mode or anything like that. It is designed as a solo game. It plays in about 20 to 60 minutes. The complexity on this one is medium light, and we're going to set the risk on this campaign at medium low. Now, this game is sort of a slasher series like the Final Girl archetype in horror movies, and you'll get the base game depending on how you pledge, and then there are many different films that you can add on or pledge in a larger pledge and a bundle, and you'll be able to play any of those specific scenarios with the core box. The first season had 5 different films as well as a bonus vignette, and there are 5 new films in this new series, this season 2. And in general, each film comes with a new protagonist, a new villain, a new location, and so if you want, you can mix and match some of those elements to create a more variable experience pulling from the various films. It's based on another series from Van Ryder Games called Hostage Negotiator. That's also a solo game, and the player plays a hostage negotiator trying to talk down criminals. So they kind of tweaked that system, they reinvented it for this Final Girl horror-themed series, and I think it's really taken off under this brand because the Final Girl name is fairly well known. There's been a couple movies with that name, and it's also just an archetype that is sort of talked about in popular culture. Now, the game features mechanisms like dice rolling, hand management, and some pick up and deliver. Now, the original game and the kind of game system was designed by Evan Derrick and AJ Porfirio. They're both back with this Kickstarter, and they've worked on some of the new films. They've also been joined by a couple of new designers who have done 1 film each, and some of the original artists from the first series are back, and there's also a couple of additional new artists that are doing 1 film each as well. So Evan Derrick has previously designed Dark Moon, Detective City of Angels, which is another really good series that Van Ryder Games has put out, one of their biggest series until this one, and then also the original Final Girl. Whereas AJ Porfirio previously worked on Final Girl, Hostage Negotiator, and Hostage Negotiator Crime Wave. Also on board for this is Julie Ahern. She has previously worked on a couple of very small titles called Z-Pocalypse and Z-Pocalypse 2 Defend the Suburbs, as well as Mike Martin's, and this is his first published game as a full designer. In terms of artists, Vladislava Ladkova is back from the first series, and Tyler Johnson is also back, and in addition to working on the first Final Girl, he also worked on Lucidity, Six-Sided Nightmares, and Warp's Edge. They are joined by a couple of artists who are new to the series. Roland McDonald previously worked on Battle Line, Undaunted Normandy, Undaunted North Africa, Werewords, and Western Legends. And Heather Vaughn previously worked on Art Deco, Buried Treasure, and Unmatched Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I'm pretty sure it was that Unmatched Buffy title that got her the job on this series. I'm guessing. It's thematically kind of similar, right? Van Ryder Games is the publisher, and they have previously worked on such titles as Detective City of Angels, the original Final Girl, and Hostage Negotiator. Now, there are about 9 different pledge levels on this campaign, so let's get through these, and then I'll talk about which items that you can add on if there are things that you want to do individually as add-ons. So for $20, you can pledge a la carte, which means any one film or any combination of films. Each film that you order a la carte will cost $20. Now, if you do that, that means that you either pledged the first series or you got it at retail, but either way, you need the base game to be able to play any of the films. You need those base game components. So the only way that you should be pledging for that a la carte is if you already have a copy of the base game. However, you can also pledge for $40. That pledge level is called Film Debut. That will get you the core game and one other film. And then if you wanted, you could add on more films from there. Now, for $90, you can pledge the Series 2 feature films. That means, again, you already have the base game, so you're just getting the new feature films. That also means that you'll only be getting those feature films, so not the rest of the extras from this campaign. Now, the titles of the new films include Into the Void, A Knock at the Door, Madness in the Dark, Once Upon a Full Moon, and Terror at Station 2891. For $159, you go back to the Series 1 and you can pledge the Series 1 franchise. So that will essentially include everything in the Series 1. That means you'll be getting those 5 films, the original 5 films, plus the original vignette. And the title of those 5 films plus the vignette are Carnage at the Carnival, Frightmare on Maple Lane, The Happy Trails Horror, The Haunting of Creek Manor, Slaughter in the Groves, and the vignette called Terror from Above. So the vignette is a smaller film. You actually need another film to play that. So to play the vignette, you need the base game and one other film. And then it uses some of the components from another film. Essentially, it doesn't come with its own location. So there's no way to play it if you don't have at least one location, and there are no locations in the base game, so you need to use a location from one of the other films. But with that pledge, you will also be getting all of the extras from the first campaign, which includes the core box, the Season 1 lore and scenario box, the Season 1 miniature set, the Season 1 game mat set, and then 2 items that weren't actually around during the time of the Season 1 franchise, which are kind of new items being offered in this campaign, which are the Season 1 vehicle pack and the Season 1 storage box. Now, for $159, you can also pledge the Series 2 franchise, but that's completely separate. And that's going to include all of the 5 films from Series 2. And then the extras that I mentioned, you won't be getting the Series 1 version of those things, you will be getting the Series 2 versions of those things. And there is no lore and scenario book for Season 2, so that is not part of that package. But you will be getting a copy of the original core box, and then the Season 2 miniature set, the Season 2 vehicles pack, the Season 2 game mats, and the Season 2 storage box. For $165, you can pledge the Series 2 Collection Booster. So that will include everything new that I've been talking about, but it will also include the 2 new items for Season 1 that have not been offered previously. So that is the Season 1 Vehicle Pack and the Season 1 Collector's Box. So essentially it's like pledging the Series 2 franchise and then adding those 2 items on. For $209, you can pledge the Gameplay All-In. That will include the core box, all 10 films, so 5 from Series 1, 5 from Series 2, the vignette film from Series 1 called Terror from Above, as well as that Season 1 lore and scenario book. So it's kind of all of the essential gameplay stuff, but none of the extras, none of the miniatures, vehicles, game mats, storage boxes, all that kind of stuff. However, you can pledge at the $299 pledge level called Full Franchise, which is $90 more than that previous level, and that will add in all of those extras. So you'll be getting the Season 1 and Season 2 miniatures pack, vehicles pack, game mats, and the storage boxes, as well as all of the films and the vignette and the lore and scenario book. For $329, and this is the final pledge level now, you can pledge the Epic All-In, and that will get you everything that we've talked about previously for both seasons, plus 4 additional items. One is a Paula Deming promo card. One is the Season 1 Gruesome Death Book. So what they did is they took all of the films in the first season and they made this art book out of it that featured all of the different gruesome deaths from all of the films. It doesn't look like they're doing that for season 2, but you can still get that gruesome deaths book from season 1, and it's one of the 4 things included in this $30 edition, up from the full franchise pledge level. There are 2 more things included, the season 1 mystery box and the season 2 mystery box. Now, they have not revealed yet what is in the season 2 mystery box. However, we already know, because it was produced, it was delivered previously, that the season 1 mystery box is kind of like a little Necronomicon with several dice in it, and you can use the icons on those dice to randomly determine which film you're going to play, and I think which villain you're fighting. There may be more variability as well. I think there are 4 dice, so maybe you can also randomly determine which hero you're playing. But it is a way to kind of randomly determine what your gameplay setup is going to be. Now, if you'd like to get some of those things as add-ons, here are the prices for the various items that are available as add-ons. So for $5, you can get the Paula Deming promo card. Also for $5, you can get that Season 1 lore and scenario book. For $10, you can get the Series 1 vehicle pack. Also for $10, you can get the Series 2 vehicle pack. Also for $10, you can get the Series 1 mystery box. Also for $10, you can get the Series 2 mystery pack. And also for $10, you can get that vignette film from Series 1 called Terror from Above. For $20, you can add on a copy of the core game, the core box. Also for $20, you can get the Series 1 miniatures. Also for $20, you can get the Series 2 miniatures. And then any additional feature film that you'd like to add on is $20. Finally, for $25, you can add on the Series 1 storage box. Also for $25, the Series 2 storage box. Also for $25, the Series 1 game mat set. And also for $25, the Series 2 game mat set. And yes, there are different game mats for the first series and the second series. So if you really want the game mats, you probably want to get each game mat set for each series. Now, depending on what pledge you pledge, there's a big range of pledges with a big range of things and a big range of weight. But depending what you pledge, the US shipping is going to range somewhere from $15 for the a la carte pledge to $39 shipping for the Epic All-In. And then finally, Van Ryder Games is planning on delivering Final Girl Series 2 in December of 2022. From there, we go to Marvel Zombies, a Zombicide game. And this game had a minimum required funding goal of $500,000. They're currently sitting at over $5 million, which is more than 10 times that minimum required funding goal. Like Final Girl, Marvel Zombies is also going to complete their funding on Thursday, February 3rd. This is a game that plays 1 to 6 players. Individual sessions take about 60 minutes. Gameplay, complexity-wise, is in the medium-light range, and we are going to set the risk of this campaign at low. Now, this is a cooperative game. It largely features dice rolling. It is campaign-based, and it is in the Zombicide universe. It's kind of based on Zombicide 2nd Edition, but of course it's bringing in the Marvel heroes. And I think one of the coolest things about this campaign is that the original game here is going to play with the heroes as zombies, and so the mechanics will be based on keeping those zombies alive by doing, various things. And then there is a second game offered in this campaign that allows you to play as regular heroes, and when you do that, they'll have goals and they'll be trying to bring down the zombies. So it really is 2 games in one, and they're actually going to be using different kinds of mechanics in each game, as well as different miniatures. So throughout this campaign, there's essentially double the number of miniatures. Half of those are the heroes as zombies, and half of them are their normal kind of heroic selves. One of the pledges even has a giant Galactus statue that is huge, one of the biggest miniatures ever made, and it towers over the other miniatures. You may have seen this, but even that statue has the ability to swap out the head and the arm so that you can make it into a regular Galactus or a zombie Galactus, depending on which mode you're playing. Now, this game was designed by Fabio Curie and Michael Scheinall. Michael Scheinall has previously designed Bloodboard the board game. Rum and Bones Second Tide, and Xenoshift Onslaught. There are two main artists on this game. The first, Marco Cicchetto. This appears to be his first published game. The other one is Henrik Ludvigsen. He's a very prolific artist. He's worked on such games as Android Netrunner, Arkham Horror the Card Game, Blood Rage, Star Wars Imperial Assault, and Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures game. Finally, this is being published by CMON, who has previously published such games as Arcadia Quest, Blood Rage, Cthulhu Death May Die, Rising Sun, and Zombicide Black Plague. They've done all the Zombicide games. Black Plague is just the one that has the highest rating on BoardGameGeek. Now, there are 3 different pledge levels in this at the time of this filming. However, CMON is sort of notorious for adding in more content and more pledge levels right up to the last day, sometimes the last half day of the campaign. So check back, check the campaign, see if anything's changed, if they've added anything more in since I made this video. But I'm shooting this on a Saturday morning. I plan on having this video up probably Monday morning, and then the campaign will finish on Thursday. So almost without a doubt, there's going to be at least 1, if not 2 more expansions added between Monday and Thursday, and probably another pledge level, probably an all-in that includes that additional expansion or expansions. But right now, as I'm filming this, there are 3 pledge levels. The first is for $130. It's called the Undead Pledge, and that is going to get you the Marvel Zombies base game, the game where you are playing as Marvel heroes that are zombies. If you pledge $240, which is the Resistance Pledge, you will get essentially the other game, the game that allows you to play the Marvel superheroes as heroes fighting the zombies. So that will take the core pledge, the Marvel Zombies game, and add the X-Men Resistance core box onto that. The final pledge is for $410. It is the Galactus Pledge, and that will give you both of those other core games as well as this giant Galactus statue. So you're jumping up $170 going from the previous pledge to this one. And that $170 is really just getting you this big statue along with a few components. Ways to swap out his head and his arm and a few components that are used in gameplay. But it's basically $170 for this giant miniature that sits on the board in-game and looks very impressive and adds a lot of table presence, but $170 of table presence. And then, as is usually the case with CMON, there are a bunch of expansions, and many of those are not yet offered through any pledge level. So if you want to add those on, here are those prices. I will say at the top, though, if you want to add on the Galactus statue, I guess you could get a second one. Or maybe you don't want the Resistance game, so you just want the original Zombies Pledge plus the Galactus statue. Although that would be a little bit weird because you'd only be using half of the statue, because the statue works for both games. Anyway, if you'd like to add on another copy of the Galactus statue, it's $180, which is $10 more than what you're paying for it within that Galactus pledge. But for $10, you can get an extra dice set. For $25, you can get the Artist's Special Edition set. And that's a few more miniatures that aren't included anywhere else. I haven't looked too deeply at what comes with that, but I believe it is just maybe a half a dozen miniatures that aren't included in the other expansions. So it gives you more characters to play. They may even be sort of alternative sculpts of characters that are already in the game. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what it is because there aren't any other components. There aren't any other cards and things like that. So those have to be either alternate sculpts of characters already in the game or possibly a character that's using another character's card set and components. And then there are 3 other real kind of expansions. The Guardians of the Galaxy expansion is $40. The Fantastic Four Under Siege expansion is $50, and the Hydra expansion is $50 as well. Now, depending on which pledge you're pledging, your continental US shipping, that's the only price range I'm going to give, just to give one thing, is going to range between $35 and $107. Now, also take note that there is 2-wave shipping available. So that $107 is going to be the 2-wave shipping, which is the more expensive of the two, for the biggest pledge. Whereas the $35 shipping is going to be just the core box, and that would only go one wave anyway, because they're only delivering you one thing. Now, if you just order the Marvel Zombies core box, the one that's part of the Undead Pledge, that is going to deliver in October of this year, October of 2022. And if you order a bigger pledge and you do 2-wave shipping, that's what you'll be getting during that first wave in October of 2022. If you do 1-wave shipping and have everything come at the end, or if you do 2-wave shipping, you get the core early, everything else will be delivering in June of 2023. Finally, the last game on this list is called White Hat, but it is actually over on Gamefound. So it's not a Kickstarter, it's at Gamefound. And if you go down into the descriptor section, whatever you click on for any of these games, it will take you to the right place. So the link for White Hat will take you to the White Hat campaign on Gamefound. Now, the minimum required funding goal for this game was $4,500. They're currently at $5,500, so I wouldn't call it a runaway success, but they're definitely funding, they're going to fund, and the game's going to deliver. Right now, they're at about 1.3 times that minimum required funding goal. Now, White Hat is going to complete its funding on Saturday, February 5th. This is a game for 1 to 6 players. Game sessions take about 30 to 45 minutes. Complexity on this game is about medium light, and we're going to set the risk on this campaign at medium high. So this is a very puzzly, hacker-themed trick-taking game. It's based on a game that already exists. It's being put back out by the same designers, the same publisher. The first game was called Black Hat, which actually is really more what refers to those kinds of hackers, but they're doing a new version of the game. They're changing the name to White Hat, and in doing so, they are building in a solo mode. So the real difference here between the two different versions of the game is that the new version, White Hat, can also be played solo. And because it is a very puzzly game, I think that's a good addition. I think this game will really have an opportunity to shine in its solo mode. And again, I think as this pandemic is weaving back and forth and going through all kinds of permutations, it's probably not bad to have a solo mode in your game. So there are 2 designers on this game, Thomas Klausner and Timo Multamaki. Thomas Klausner has previously worked on Black Hat, that was the original game, as well as Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift. And Timo Multamaki has previously worked on Factory 42, Perdition's Mouth, Abyssal Rift, and The Phantom League. There are about 4 different credited artists on this game. Scott Everts has previously worked on Astra Titanus, Legions of Darkness, and Pillars of Eternity, Lords of the Eastern Reach. Jerry Kasanen has previously worked on Eclipse, Second Dawn of the Galaxy, Flamme Rouge, Honshu, Nations, and Nations the Dice Game. John Lewis has previously worked on Black Hat and Pillars of Eternity, Lords of the Eastern Reach. And Juha Salmajarvi has previously worked on Black Hat, Iron Sky the board game, and Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift. Finally, the publisher, Dragon Dawn Productions, has previously put out Meisho and Orkney Saga, Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift, and The Phantom League. Okay, so there are 7 different pledge levels for White Hat, but really there's just one because the other pledge levels are ways to get other games from the same publisher in bundles and things like that. So for $20, if you pledge White Hat, you're getting the game. For $22, the Darwinning pledge level, you can pledge for the Darwinning game. It's another game by the same publisher. It's already been out for a while. If you'd like to see what it is, you can go look it up on Board Game Geek. For $28, you can pledge for their game Dwarf. And for $30, you can pledge for their game Meisho. Now for $37, you can pledge the Trick-Taking Double, and that will get you White Hat and Darwinning at a price that is $5 less than if you pledged for each of those games separately. Finally, for $88, you can pledge the DDP small box set. DDP is for Dragon Dawn Productions. That's going to include all 4 of those games at a bundle price that is $13 less than if you pledge for them all separately and individually. And one last thing, for $1, there is a special White Hat promo card. It's going out free to people who followed the campaign before it launched, but I think this is always a good idea. If you didn't do that and you still want it, you can add it on for $1. So If you just want white hat, you might want to pledge the $20 pledge level and then add on that card for $1. Depending on what pledge level you're pledging at, continental US shipping is going to range from $12 to $24, and Dragon Dawn Productions is planning on delivering this game in September of 2022. So that ends the currently running Kickstarter section, and if you'd like to hear what I pledged from last week's video, then I'm about to tell you. So there were two different games that I profiled last week, Skytear Horde and the new expansions for Viscounts of the West Kingdom. That campaign was called Viscounts, Gates of Gold, and Keeper of Keys. I did not pledge for Skytear Horde. I didn't even really consider it, but I did pledge of Viscounts, Gates of Gold, and Keeper of Keys. I really, really like Viscounts of the West Kingdom. It's one of my favorite games from Garphill Games. So of course, I am very much looking forward to two more expansions that are both going to add in different kinds of content to the game. There's a solo mode that I'm also looking forward to experiencing. I haven't done it yet, but I really like the game and I'm really looking forward to the solo mode. Finally, I had 3 new games that I've acquired since the last video. The first of those is Dune Imperium Rise of Ix. Now, I'm a little lax on knowing what is in the Dune Imperium Rise of Ix expansion. I have played the base game a bunch of times, and I think it is one of the best kind of medium weight games that came out in 2020. I put it right up there with Lost Ruins of Arnak. Both of those games combined deck building and worker placement and just made for a great game. They're different, they play differently, but I like them both a lot. So when they did the miniatures expansion for Dune Imperium, I did get that, and this new expansion I also just acquired. I'm looking forward to putting it in with the base game and just getting everything played soon. I also received It's a Wonderful Kingdom, and the interesting thing with this game is that I skipped It's a Wonderful World the first time that was on Kickstarter. I skipped it again when it came back. I think for me, I was just pledging other games at the time. I didn't have too much disposable income, and It's a Wonderful World looked to me like just another kind of resource management cube pusher. It looked good. It looked like it had bright, colorful components, and it looked well made for what it was. The gameplay just didn't look that compelling or special to me. But I was really close to backing it when they came back for their expansion Kickstarter, because that added in some campaign elements, and it felt like there was going to be a lot of good game there for maybe a solo mode or even just playing with multiple people. But I did end up passing it up. Now, last year they ran a campaign for It's a Wonderful Kingdom, which was sort of an adapted version of the game, 2-player only, and I knew with Kristen, my fiance, that would be a game that might be really good for us. So I did back that. However, at that time, I was looking to also get all of the It's a Wonderful World stuff. I was planning on, doing whatever their all-in pledge was or adding on that stuff. It was not available through the campaign. So I just received It's a Wonderful Kingdom. I know that the art is a little bit darker than It's a Wonderful World. That's okay. It's themed a little bit differently. It's got more of a fantasy theme to it. So I am looking forward to playing it and seeing how it plays in a 2-player setting. It's designed for that, so I have high hopes for it, I think. But I'm also hoping that at some point It's a Wonderful World will come back to Kickstarter, because I've looked at what's available in retail and it's missing several items. Like there's no big storage box for everything. There's a couple campaigns that were only available on Kickstarter, and there are a bunch of deluxe components that aren't available at retail. So I'm going to enjoy It's a Wonderful Kingdom, and I'm going to hope that It's a Wonderful World comes back at some point so that I can get that as well. I also received the latest Thunderstone Quest campaign. It was the 3rd big box in the series. It was called The Enemies Among Us, and it featured 2 more kind of smaller expansions or extended storylines. I think they were called Darkness Rising and Miracell's Return, but they were put together into this bigger box called The Enemies Among Us. Now, I think they've gotten into a point with their big boxes where they didn't really need a new box for these 2 storylines, but the content couldn't fit into either of the previous 2 big boxes, which makes me wonder if there's still more content coming, because I think with that new, bigger 3rd box, they're going to have room to do several more expansions. So they could do what they did with The Enemies Among Us, those 2 expansions, and bring out several more campaigns with a couple storylines each, and just keep fitting them into this new box. They could continue to offer the box for people who didn't get it before, but I think this new box will serve several more smaller campaigns if they choose to go that way. Now, in general, Thunderstone Quest is one of my favorite 2 deck builders along with Aeon's End, so I'm always happy to get more Thunderstone Quest stuff, although I've been so busy with other games recently that I haven't played it in a while, and I'd like to eventually get it back to the table soon. But the first thing for me right now is to finish up my campaign for Role Player Adventures. So with that said, let me quickly talk about what's coming for the channel. So I'm in the middle of this video series, which is my 100 most anticipated games of 2022. I'm right now actually editing video 5, which is the second chunk of 20 games. It's going to be called The Next 20. So that should be up before this airs. I'm planning on getting that video up probably Sunday morning, and then this video should publish on Monday morning. Later in this week, I plan on getting the remaining 3 videos in that series. Definitely 2 of them will come out during the week, but I want to make sure that next week's Kickstarter Weekly gets published on Friday. That's the day that it should be getting published forever, running forward. So we're going to hit that Friday publish date with next week's Kickstarter Weekly, which means the final video in the top 100 most anticipated games of 2022 series may get bumped and actually be published next weekend, or when you see this coming weekend. Once that happens, that will conclude the series, and then the following week I will circle back. I will do my November 2021 and December 2021 Game of the Month videos. Then I'll probably put out that week's Kickstarter Weekly, and then at some point, maybe in a week or 2, I will cycle back and do the January 2022 Game of the Month video. Now, once I complete that anticipated video series, I will be moving on to a few other projects. I'll talk about that in a later video, but those are kind of more behind the scenes projects that are going to involve me readying and eventually getting into my new studio space. I'll be putting out some first impressions videos over the next month or 2. I'll be keeping up with the Kickstarter Weekly. I'll be catching up with the Game of the Month videos, but I'll also be doing kind of a lot of behind the scenes work, also getting some more equipment and things like that. And this is all leading up to my top 30 games of 2020, which is a new series that I'll be working on, but not until March or April. So I think that's probably all I need to update about right now. I hope you're enjoying the channel. I hope that I gave you something to think about with this week's Kickstarters. If you haven't checked it out, you may want to go look at that video series about my most anticipated games of 2022. I think there's a lot of good food for thought in that series, and it will give you an idea of what's coming out this year. Games that you might want to keep an eye out for, games that you definitely will want to play, and games that you might want to put on your must-buy list. And as I already mentioned before, that series will complete its publication over the course of this next week. So have a great week, play lots of great games, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will be seeing you very, very soon with this slate of videos that I have publishing over the next week. Take care.